Welcome back to Powerplay, everyone. Firdose and I have returned to our respective homes from the T20 Women's World Cup, where we brought you exclusive interviews with 14 of the world's leading players. Thank you so much for listening to those. We hope you enjoyed the quickfire episodes as much as we loved bringing them to you. As ever with cricket, though, things move on very quickly, and it's been the same for us as we turn our attention to the series between England and South Africa.
I'm here in beautiful Cape Town. Summer has come to the Southern Hemisphere. We are so excited for the upcoming couple of months of cricket. So excited, in fact, that we planned in advance and we thought that we were doing something really with a lot of foresight, and that we got South African-born England player Paige Scholfield to chat to us on the podcast. She was really looking forward to playing in South Africa, the country of her birth. And then, unfortunately, she suffered an ankle injury, which ruled her out of the tour in its entirety. So we're so disappointed for you, Paige. We know that you really wanted to play on some of the grounds that you would have dreamed of as a young child. But she still had some really interesting things to say to us about her cricketing journey, about what she was looking forward to, and the kinds of ways she is seeing cricket developing domestically in England, in South Africa, and across the world. So let's have a listen to what she had to say.
First of all, looking ahead to England's tour of South Africa, you're one of just two players in the T20 squad which wasn't at the World Cup, where they bowed out in the group stages. Have you had a chance to, I assume you've had a chance to sort of assemble with the squad who aren't at the WBBL. Can you just sort of talk us through what the mood's been like and what training's been like looking forward?
Yeah, so I actually joined up with the girls on Monday. We've been at Loughborough Monday to Wednesday, and we've really been working on focusing and honing in on our skills and what our role is going to be going out to South Africa. So obviously I've come in as a batter, and I've been working very closely with some of the coaches, Giddo, for example, on what my role will be in South Africa. So yeah, it's been actually exciting and nice to join up with the group and to get to see the girls. A lot of them I grew up playing cricket with, so it was nice to be with them in that environment again.
Sure. And so you made your debut in Ireland in September. So now that you've been back with the squad and looking ahead to this tour, what exactly do you see your role as being?
Well, I've had a good chat with Louis, and I guess I'll be coming to play potentially that middle order role. He likes my explosiveness as a batter and taking on bowlers. So yeah, I've really just tried to continue working on that. Obviously in the 100 I had a bit of a go at opening in that, but for me, my role throughout my career has been back from 5 to 7. So I've been working closely with Giddo on that this week, and in preparing to go out to South Africa and do the job they need me to do.
Sure. And just in terms of that explosiveness, where does that come from with you?
Well, I guess it came from when I started playing cricket with my dad, and I always just wanted to hit him for 6 in the garden, etc. So my way of playing has always been like that, and just trying to put the ball out the park, because, you know, you'd rather have 6 runs than 2 runs. But yeah, I just try to take on the game rather than be tentative, because that's just not the way I play. So I try to hone in on my strengths and do that at the highest level possible.
Paige, you talked about wanting to hit your dad for 6, and kind of a little bit about your background. I guess what people might not know is that, I know you say you're playing for England, but you actually come from Amandintoti here in KwaZulu-Natal. So you are a South African by birth. Can you tell us a bit about that? I mean, when did you move? Why did you move? And, you know, what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, I was born in Amandintoti. I was a coast girl, used to love surfing, being in the sea. And then one day, Mom and Dad turned around and said, look, we're going on an adventure and we're moving to England, which, when you come home from school, that's quite a big change. And 6 weeks later, we were here in England, and we'd moved to the south of England, which I can confirm is not as warm as the south of Africa. But yeah, I never really played cricket in South Africa, if I'm honest. It was more surfing and swimming, etc. I was involved with a lot of sport, but cricket, unfortunately, wasn't one of them. Came to England, joined up with a school. They did this competition, who could throw a ball the furthest. And then next news, I was playing in a cricket team, and it just grew from there, and it just took off, which I'm still trying to keep up with now, if I'm honest. It's an absolute whirlwind. But yeah, thoroughly enjoying playing cricket. But there is mixed emotions going into this, but I'm very excited to be playing and representing my country, but also being back in my home country where I was born. So yeah, it's an exciting tour for me. I was 12 when I moved here.
Okay. So you remember, what it was like being a kid in South Africa,
Yeah,
and it's so
sunlight.
interesting. Yeah, it's here. I'm just interested in that observation of yours. When you were 12, I mean, obviously you're still quite young, but South African women's cricket has only really developed in the last 10 years and then, professionalized properly, probably in the last 5 or so. But then you got to England and there were already competitions for people to go and play cricket. So that must have been, you've obviously been allowed to develop a lot quicker than if you'd stayed here and maybe discovered cricket in your, late teens or early 20s. Or is that quite an interesting difference for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, I didn't really know cricket existed when I was there because it just wasn't available for girls at the time. I knew the boys played a lot because my brother played a bit of it, but for girls in general, it wasn't around. And the same I could say for here, it's grown very quickly, and now it is available for girls in schools and in local clubs. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but just seeing the South African team now and how they are developing and growing, and talking to some of the girls during the 100, it's exciting to see, and hopefully we can get to a point where the big nations are competing with each other, with the likes of Australia, England, South Africa, New Zealand. I mean, you look at the World Cup, it just shows that with investment put into teams can achieve great things. New Zealand go on to win a World Cup, which I bet no one would have put money on going into that World Cup, but it just shows that with resources and funding, it can make a very big difference in allowing these teams to achieve things like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to say we don't talk about the World Cup final anymore.
I know. Oh no, my heart was split.
None of us here want to talk about this right now.
Delete that part.
I know. Oh, it was an emotional roller coaster, that World Cup.
It was. Just picking up on something that you said, just talking about the development of the game and the women's game. So you would have seen rapid change in that space in England, in England and Wales over the past 4 or 5 years. Can you talk us through a little bit about what that's been like living through that and the changes you've seen over the course of your career whilst playing in England?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's come out of it for most of the girls is we're able to make a career out of it now. So, I mean, you must have known before, the girls had to work basically 2 jobs just to keep a career in cricket, which is hard, and it has an effect on performance and ability to better yourself as a player. But now with this new county setup, and it's just allowed so much pressure to be taken off the girls and allowed for the game to grow even quicker and better. And it comes again down to this island tour where there is now a pool of players that they can dip into and allow them to represent their country regardless of where they're at in their career. For example, myself, I'm 28. I had very little hope that I'd be representing my country with these youngsters coming through who are just unbelievably talented. But this, I think, county setup now allows players like myself, your Eve Jones, etc., to still be able to have that ambition to represent their country and to show the rest of the world what we can do, and that, age is just a number, and I can still throw myself about and hit a couple of balls. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and I'm really enjoying where the game's going, and I hope it continues to grow to the point where we can get to where the men are at and make a career and travel the world doing it.
28 is not old. We just had Susie telling us that women in their mid-30s can play professional sport. I mean, we know Valkerie and I have just turned 21, but it's fine to be 28.
No, I know, but it's just, there's always been this thing around age where in sport you hit a certain age and that's it, your career's over. But we can see now, even in the men's game, you look at Jimmy Anderson, he's played until a remarkable age, which was unheard of before, and we're starting to see it more and more in the women's game, and hopefully that can continue with better support in the sports and science and medicine department, nutrition department, etc. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and I'm hoping that I've got a couple more years under my belt and I can continue to try and develop as a player, and maybe, who knows, make it to a tour in the World Cup or something one day.
So what was that like when you got that call up at the age of 28 to go to Ireland, and just what was that experience like representing England after all that time, but also, now the doors that it's opened for you?
Well, I mean, it was an awkward start because I thought it was my England A coach calling me, so I got the wrong coach, and I was like, oh no. But yeah, it was so out of the blue, and I was so excited, and just couldn't believe it was happening, if I'm honest. Like I'm still now trying to regulate my feelings around it. And speaking to my mom and dad, like when I told them about this tour to South Africa, and they were over the moon, being diehard South Africans, they just couldn't believe it. They just thought my mom started crying, which I was just like, oh mom, come on now. Like I know it's home, but yeah, no, it's just so exciting, and I just hope it continues to happen. And I want to go out there in South Africa and just show what I can do, and hopefully just keep knocking on that door at England and seeing how far I can take myself in my career.
And Paige, you mentioned, South Africa, that they've got a newly professional structure. This is the first season that we're seeing contracted players. Well, last season was, this is now, well, we're already in summer. It's the second summer.
Yeah.
But I think, the development and finding depth has been a problem. We're now starting to see it grow a little bit. But they did reach a World Cup final twice. I know we said we won't talk about it, but that is pretty spectacular. So what are you expecting from them as an opposition? Like you guys, they've qualified for the 50 over World Cup. They don't play as many tests, but do you think they almost there and thereabouts? They can maybe even beat England.
Yeah, I mean, look, they showed in the World Cup what they can do as a team. I think obviously with more resources and funding coming in for the team and allowing those players to develop, and hopefully, I don't know the structure behind the team, but I can see that they work hard as individuals, and they've shown that out in the World Cup. I think they're a very underestimated team. I think they've got a lot of firepower within that team, and they are destructive, and they've got a lot of passion, which I think goes a long way in sport. So I personally wouldn't underestimate them at all. I think they're just as good as anyone else in this tournament, and we will be going in with our strongest side and just trying to perform and make sure that we can beat them, because they will come at us hard, and I wouldn't expect any different or any little from them.
They're also a team that I guess, for them, you guys are the big kind of draw card of the summer. But for you guys, you'll have a Christmas break and then you'll go off to Australia and play the Women's Ashes. So I guess you've got these two back-to-back contests. South Africa have got one massive contest. How much in the back of your mind do you think, I mean, especially yourself who's coming on this tour and maybe is kind of newer to the setup, we better prepare for Australia, and how much of it is South Africa are a really strong opposition?
I think, well, speaking for myself, and I think most of the girls, we tend to take tours by tour, so we don't like to look ahead too far. I think by doing that, you then forget the basics, and it can affect the tour that you're going on now, i.e. South Africa. So, like again, this week we've been at Loughborough and we've been focusing on what we need to do in order to accomplish a win against South Africa. Australia, yes, that's in the back of people's minds, but that's where it will remain until this tournament's done and we achieve what our goal is, and hopefully go out there and come back with a win. But yeah, I think, look, the Ashes is a big thing for England, but again, the girls know what they need to do when it comes to that. But for now, it's all the focus is on South Africa.
Just on Australia then, and I know you sort of don't want to look too far ahead, but I guess looking back a little bit at the World Cup and their performance there, and their surprise exit. What did that sort of tell you, if anything, about them? I mean, are we looking at that whole Australian aura starting to fade, and did it prove that they're beatable, or I mean, is that just T20 cricket? What was your take on their performance at the World Cup?
I think, look, T20 can be a brutal and unforgiving game. It's 1%ers that can win or lose you a game. So I think it's hard to judge a team based off one World Cup, because, again, the smallest thing could lose or win you a game. So Australia have always been the team that everyone wants to beat, and they've always been at the top. They're very strict, and they're an exciting bunch, and they've always managed to find those things that just get them over the edge. So, yeah, I wouldn't say they're fading. I'd say other teams are catching up. And I think, like I said, I keep saying these resources and the financial that's been putting into these teams is allowing that to happen, and we're having these even playing fields. So, yeah, it's exciting, and I think it may only be the better for the game and allow, for the crowds to have a better viewing as well, which is exciting, and that's what we want as players. We want to excite the crowds. So I think Australia will still find a way to try and be better and do better than everyone else. But I guess that's sport, isn't it? You're always trying to beat each other, and that's what makes it exciting.
Now, England have just announced that there's a bit of an Australian connection. Courtney Winfield-Hill is going to be an assistant coach on the Tour of South Africa and also for the Women's Ashes. She had a similar role on the Tour of Ireland, so you would have had an opportunity to work with her there. What does she bring to the setup?
Oh, I love Courtney personally. I think she's a great character and energy around the team. I've known her for a bit now. I've worked with her for a bit actually, and with Lauren being at Oval Invincibles and the 100, yeah, I think she's just a great character to have around the team. She just brings a bundle of energy to the team, and she also sees things from a different point of view, which is quite nice. It's not sports specific, but also tapping into your emotions and dealing with all these big things happening around your sport and that. So yeah, I'm really excited to be working with her again as well, because I do have a good relationship with her, and I think she's an exciting step in the women's game and having that female role model within the game as well.
Yeah, so important, and also multi-talented, rugby league player as well. So now that we've said the R word, probably worth saying that rugby is a big thing in both South Africa and England. And we're talking just before the Springboks play England. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one, Paige. But, you know, of all the things you're looking forward to in terms of coming home, if we can call it that, if you had to pick, what is the one thing that you are going to do when you land in South Africa and you get the chance to just go wild? What's it going to be?
I'll go straight to a steak restaurant and getting biltong. I am straight in. It is so hard to find a proper steak anywhere other than South Africa. I can hands down tell you that now. But also the biltong. I just miss the food and just the culture and everything like that. And growing up, you know, just running around with a biltong stick in your hand and, you know, just munching on a steak every now and then. So I can't wait. I've already told the girls I'm dragging them to a steak restaurant. And that I'll be introducing them to biltong and dry horse and butterwurst rolls, and I can't wait.
Just note that she's only actually mentioned meat in all the things
exactly.
she said. Do you have a favorite steakhouse in South Africa? Is this going to be like, are we doing some surreptitious advertising for someone here?
No. I mean, my favorite steakhouse is my dad. I'll always love my dad's steak. He just knows how to do it for me, because I am a girl who likes it rare to medium rare. So I still like that bit of blood in there and that. So, which people here don't like very much and they find it very weird. But yeah, I just can't wait to get my hands on some proper meat, if I'm honest.
Right. So not wanting to get too competitive, if we happen to see you out at the Women's Ashes, I'd like to see what you think of Australian steak, and then we can have a steak off.
Okay. I've heard about these barbecues, but you know, we like a braai. That's a proper way of cooking meat. I've already had Megan Shoot telling me about all their steaks and that, but I can confirm nothing will beat a South African steak. The cows are bred different.
That is absolutely true. She's dead right on that front. We're looking forward to welcoming you back home to South Africa, Paige, and hope that we can see you around. Definitely catch you at the test match and some of the other venues. And yeah, I hope you really enjoy the sun. It's beautiful. It's mid-20 degrees. There's no wind, you know. It's really the place to be. So yeah, we look so forward to seeing you here.
Leave the jumpers and coats at home, thankfully.
Don't even think about them.
No, exactly. Save some space for my biltong to bring home.
Oh, just hearing the enthusiasm and excitement in Paige's voice there makes it all the more heartbreaking that as I now speak, she's on her way back to England to start some rehab on that ankle injury. And as Firdose said, we wish her all the very best and thank her for joining us. We also managed to catch up with South Africa's Tumi Sekhukhune, who is looking forward to getting back to action for the Proteas. And here's what she had to say.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here with you guys. I think, the preparations have been going really well. I was playing provincial this past weekend, which, we won the ODI. So it's just a great start for me to, kind of get into the momentum going into the camp today.
And we know that starting with the T20s, South Africa have chosen to rest some of their more experienced players, of course, some of them coming back from the WBBL. So no Marizanne Cup and no Ayabonga Kaka. And to me, I guess that means that it's going to be maybe a few more eyes on you and a bit more responsibility on you. How do you see that working? You know, those two have been such a mainstay for South Africa. Now that they're not going to be around for the games, how do you step in?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's unfortunate that they're not here with us in the T20s, and maybe it might be an opportunity for us youngsters and other youngsters to kind of get the game time, moving into the ODIs. And I think, just having Marizan and Ayabonga as experienced players kind of like help a lot in the team. I think, they know quite a lot of players. They know quite a lot of bowling styles and how to actually help you get into things when we're playing. So yeah, I think I've learned a few things from them, and hopefully I'll just apply myself in the T20s when I do get the opportunity.
Tumi, South Africa have got such a varied attack. Marizanne Kapp's swing, the discipline of Ayabonga Kaka, Nadine de Klerk brings her variations. Are you concentrating mainly on pace, or how do you see yourself in the makeup of this attack?
Yeah, I think definitely, people would call me the slow medium pace bowler. And normally my style, coming in is to just contain runs. And I know that they will actually, go at me because, I also vary in pace, and I think, everyone likes the pace coming into the bat. So hopefully, I just take whatever that I've been doing and from the World Cup, coming into this T20, and yeah, just apply myself and hopefully do well.
And how much have you learnt from someone like Shabnam Ismail, given that you play in the same domestic team at the Lions, and she's played a big role in your journey? Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've learnt from her?
Shivnam was one of my close mates when she was still at the Proteas, and learned quite a lot from her. And each and every time when I would actually play with her bowling, she would stand on mid wicket or somewhere close where she can just talk to me. I think I've learned so much from Shivnam in terms of how to bowl variations and when to bowl variations to who and how. And I was also fortunate that, I'm also playing with Ayabonga Kaka, which, we kind of have the similar bowling style, which is, swinging the ball back in, So yeah, it was quite nice to have Shipnam. And yeah, hopefully I just, as I said, apply myself and yeah, hopefully get the great results that I would like.
Tumi, you've been talking a little bit about, players that you've watched like Shabnam and Aya, and both of them had such successful, Shabnam last World Cup, Aya at this World Cup. And we saw you on the sidelines there in Dubai. I know that you missed out in 2023. It was injury recovery. And then this time, unfortunately, you just didn't get a game because South Africa stuck to that same team. I'm sure that's quite difficult, being on the sidelines. Can you tell us a bit about what that's like? And then what do you have to do as a bench player to keep the team going?
Yeah, I think, going into any tournament or any competition, you'd like to get the game time as you would like, but unfortunately, situations do happen. And I think we were also one of the teams that, we didn't have any injuries in the teams, and everyone was, coming into the party, doing their job. But like it is difficult for me coming back and not getting the momentum to take me through in terms of the upcoming tournaments. But I think I really did pretty well in the warm-ups, and I did showcase that I bring a different kind of style and different vibe in the team. So yeah, I think it unfortunately just didn't go my way. But yeah, I'm just always happy to be part of the Proteas, and just wearing this badge on my t-shirt is quite special.
Yeah, and I guess to me, you had one of the best seats in the house, right? You've watched the team get to two finals, once from the dugout, and I guess 2023 you might have been at home, but you must have been phenomenally proud of your friends and your teammates.
Definitely, I'm always proud of this team. I think we've achieved so much as a group, and we know after the experienced players, your Dane and other people coming out and retiring, we just kind of like rebuilt from that. And, everyone coming in has a different role to play and is also, coming into the party. So, yeah, I'm just really proud of this team from, going to Australia, getting that win, history win in Australia, and yeah, just doing a lot and lot more things and beating them in the semi-finals, which has never happened before. So yeah, we just trying to take everything step by step, and hopefully it will come right one day.
Tumi, I guess just in light of the World Cup, I think this series is pretty fascinating because England didn't do as well as they were hoping or expected. You guys had that heartbreak of another sort of final defeat. Can you talk about what the mood is like within the South Africa camp now? Is it a sense of being happy with what you achieved despite not getting the trophy, or is there still a little bit of pain given that they were so close but didn't quite get there?
I think I can say, both. When you kind of, because we've always, in the previous World Cups, not mentioning last year, we would get to the semis, and not being able to like overcome that. And now we're starting to get more consistent, which we are happy with that, getting in the finals consistently. But, we've always wanted, to win the World Cup. We had the belief. Everyone has the belief, and everyone is just excited as everyone in the squad to kind of get those results for South Africa. And we know how much it would also mean to South Africans and people not actually watching our cricket to grow in the game, and not getting youngsters in the township to get into cricket and have more girls watching. But the vibe is incredible. Everyone here is just positive, and unfortunately or fortunately, we had a week off and we had to go back to our domestics. So we kind of forgot about it a little because, we also still had competition to play and, kind of focus to this coming tour. So, yeah, I can say painful, but not, just starting to forget about it. But everyone is positive and looking forward to this tour.
Yeah, I must be honest with you. I personally have completely forgotten about it and don't really want to talk about it again. So, to me, you said something really interesting there, inspiring kids from the township. And I know you come from Davidson, which Davidson's an interesting place that I don't know our listeners will know, but they might know someone like Lira. They might know Lebo Matosa. They might know Jabo Pule. They might know Ernie Els, who's got a golf course there. These are big, big names of people who come from where you come from. Tell us what it's like, where you've come from, and also what you represent when you step out there with the people of Davidson behind you.
I think, we've always known Davidson as a place where soccer players, musicians, actors come from, I mean, nobody actually expected that a cricketer, female cricketer would actually come, Davidson, because we never really had the facilities in Davidson to, get us to play like in a professional league or get us to be professional athletes. And yeah, it's just quite special for me to, have people in Davidson actually backing me, when I play in Benoni, like people come in numbers. And yeah, it's just pretty special for me because I've always had the support from, my family, my friends, and people from Davidson as well. So yeah, what I want to do is just inspire that kid coming from Davidson, whether female or male, to get into the sports, and if they really want to be successful in it, then they can do it. I think nothing is impossible. So yeah.
Timmy, given what you said there about, cricket not being so big there, and given that you've got such a varied background in sport, can you tell us how you came to choose cricket after playing volleyball? I understand you played netball and handball also. What was it that made you pick cricket?
Um, to be quite honest with you, the reason I actually picked cricket was because of my cousins, my brothers. I started playing, with them before I actually started playing netball. handball, tennis, and volleyball. I started playing cricket when I was 7, and then I, kind of just left cricket for a while because, I actually thought, okay, I'm the only girl in this cricket team, in the under 11s, under 10. And at that time, I actually thought maybe I was never going to go far with cricket. And I started playing other sports, and I actually fell in love with those sports, and it was really, really, really fun. And I remember my mom just, begged me. She's like, can you please go back and play cricket? Because you are such a different person when you're playing cricket. You always having fun, laughters, it actually brings out the best in you. So can you please go back and play cricket? And my cousins were like, no, we're gonna fetch you. So we used to train, like cricket would train this side and volleyball would train that side. So they would go pick me up from volleyball and say, come, 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 we have practice. We have practice today. And then and then I also just fell in love with cricket. How it actually brings all your emotions out. How it has its ups and downs. So I was just ready for that challenge, and I just said, what, let me just grab this opportunity and go with it. And fortunately, they spotted me, and that's how I got into the game.
Phenomenal. And to me, cricket's not your only thing. Sport's not your only thing. I read that while you were injured, you completed a degree in supply chain management and logistics. And I must say, I got no idea what any of those things are. So, what are they? And what are you hoping to do with that degree? Is it so that you have a plan B? Is it something you can use, maybe once your cricketing days are over?
Actually, that's not right. I'm actually finishing it next year. Like that's my final year. Yeah, yes. Um, but I think I've always wanted to get into logistics. I come from a family on my father's side. They very business minded people, and I was just fortunate that they would teach me about finances. They would teach me about the business, and I just fell in love with supply chain on its own. And I don't know who or where that comes from, but I'm also like a very business minded person. So just after cricket, maybe I was not looking into getting into the sport as much because I've when you go through emotional challenges in cricket, you just sometimes want to forget about it. So I think I just wanted to get into a very corporate and just business world after cricket. So no coaching for me. Yeah.
No coaching for you, mate. Maybe some commentary, you never know. But it's interesting that you speak
Yeah.
about business. A lot of players, I guess, do have some sort of side hustle, and one of them is business. And South African cricket is itself becoming a business. We've seen the professionalization of the domestic system. Have you seen that make a difference? You would have played at Easterns for a while. Now you play at the Lions. Can you see more girls coming through? Does the money make a difference? Getting a salary, especially for girls who come from areas such as yourself. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing that money now is making a difference in the domestic league. I think, we can see young girls, picking up their hands now, performing and, doing very well. So it became now professional and not now that you have to think of where you can get your last meal. Yeah, so it's just quite interesting now that you can start focusing more on cricket. And yeah, it was just also fortunate that we have Saka that can provide us with bursaries to study and not, just worry about cricket, worry about your fitness or any other stuff that involves cricket. So yeah, that was quite interesting.
And Tumi, just looking ahead to this series, can you just give us some thoughts on how you view England as an opposition and what you're expecting to see from them this series?
I think, I never really think of England as an opposition, but, we know that they are a very strong team that can come hard. But yeah, we always try to, not talk about what they can do. We always try to focus on what we can do right, what ticks we can take and, if we need to, focus on our weaknesses, then when and how, just tick off those things that we can do right each and every time. So, yeah.
Tumi, thank you so much for joining us here on ESPN Cricinfo Powerplay. South Africa, they've got one tour this summer. It's that big one against England. I'm sure that the people of Benoni are looking so forward to seeing you in the match that you will play there. You'll also be playing at some of the bigger venues in the country, Supersport Park hosting a game in Centurion, Kingsmead hosting a game in Durban, and my greatest wish is that one day we will see our women's team play a match at your new home ground at the Wanderers. So really hope that we can see that in summers to come. You've been brilliant. We're so looking forward to seeing you in action. It's been a long time since you've had the ball in hand in a competitive international. So we're looking forward to that. All the very best for the summer, Tumi, and we'll catch up with you along the way.
Oh, well, that was fantastic to hear what Tumi had to say there. And this is shaping up as a really interesting series. I think I mentioned there, I'm really fascinated as to how these two sides are going to perform post-World Cup. England, obviously, I think were quite shocked to not even make it to the knockouts. And as we spoke to Tumi there about, South Africa's heartbreak second time running and just sort of how they get over that. What do you think are going to be the key, I guess, takeaways from the World Cup? And I know you don't want to delve into that too much, neither do I. But what do you think these two teams are going to take away from that heading into, the future, starting with this series?
Yeah, I actually think, the T20s are probably a bit of a free hit because there isn't a T20 World Cup now until 2026. And the next big assignment for the women's teams is a 50-over World Cup. So for me, the T20 is much like we've just seen the South African men play against the Indian men. And that was also a free hit. But actually, to be fair, it was mostly a free hit for Tilak Varma and, the Indian batters because they were the ones scoring all the runs. So I think that's going to be a little bit of fun. And then the ODIs, both teams have qualified for the 50-over World Cup. So it's not that there are points on the line here. We've checked that extensively with our stats people who've got all the numbers in place. So I think those ODIs are very important because it's a little bit of build-up to that ODI World Cup. Of course, it's still a long way away. We're still talking about 10, 11 months away. And I think we just need to be very realistic when we say that matches are in preparation for big tournaments. The South African men's team have had the worst bilateral T20 record probably ever, and they reached the final of the World Cup. So I'm just not sure, how far out in advance you start building for a tournament, but maybe things like getting team selection and combinations right and that sort of thing. I do have a little bit of news I can toss in for you, which is that we are expecting that Dylan Dupree, the interim coach, will only be in charge for a little while longer and that a permanent coach will be appointed. We know he's told us that, a shame, he actually said he felt he was ready to take on the role full time and that he wanted them to have somebody with a little bit more expertise. Yeah, and then right at the end of the tour, there is the test match. And I don't really know what to say about women playing test cricket without red ball practice that I haven't already said. But there are quite a lot of test matches in the next version of the women's FTP. I think South Africa will play 6 tests. There's a summer where they'll host Australia and India for 2 tests. That's 1 apiece. And so I suppose maybe there is some development in that arena. What I can tell you about the venue chosen for the test match, which is Bloemfontein, is that it is very, 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 very flat. And so I expect that it's going to be tough for bowlers and we're going to see a lot of runs and hopefully we will get a result that is not a draw. But I guess that's looking very far down the track and we have a lot to talk about before then. But from an England point of view, they're going off to the Ashes after this series. And I know that Paige didn't like us saying, oh, well, is this preparation for the Ashes? But I guess that is a higher profile series. So how would you say they're viewing this tour?
Oh, sure. In fact, John Lewis, their coach, was asked about it last week and he said, well, it's not a rehearsal, but it is the start of our preparations for the Ashes. So that's clearly, in their minds. Coming back a little bit more immediately, though, a very interesting bit of late-breaking news is that Alice Capsey has been brought into the England T20 squad for this South Africa tour. Now, she's left her stint with Melbourne Renegades at the WBBL to join up with the squad as we speak. She was left out initially as one of just a couple of changes to that T20 World Cup squad for this tour. She was basically omitted. She's sort of been in the middle of a batting form slump that's gone on for a little while now. And Danny Gibson was the only other change, undergoing knee surgery on an injury that she got during their last World Cup match against West Indies. So one enforced change, and then Capsey was overlooked, but she's been brought in basically as injury cover. England aren't saying much in terms of who's, under a cloud, only that it's just a couple of minor niggles and they've decided that they want, someone around to cover. Nothing major, they're saying. But the fact that, they have brought her over, having overlooked her initially, is really interesting. And it's not like she's, set the WBBL alight in terms of her batting this time around. She's the third highest wicket taker at the moment as we speak. But it's obviously her batting that they have wanted her to work on. She's in, she's an all-rounder, but she's in there chiefly for her batting, and she has been brought in. So that's really interesting in terms of what's going to happen there in the T20s. In terms of other injury news, and you mentioned the Ashes, I guess WBBL, big news, Elisa Healy is now out of the rest of that tournament with a knee injury. She missed the first few games, having hurt her foot quite badly during the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And then ended up being fit enough to play. And the WBBL has now injured her knee. She's going to be in a bit of a race against time for the tour of India. Australia host India for some one-day internationals straight after the WBBL. Then they head to New Zealand for a couple of ODIs. Then it's the Ashes. They're not saying at this stage that it's serious enough to have her in doubt for the Ashes, but that is one to keep an eye on. In terms of, I guess, other WBBL news I mentioned there, there's plenty happening there. And Lizelle Lee, her form has been really setting the tournament on fire. What do you make of that?
Yeah, phenomenal, right? 150, was it, in the one game, and then followed up by 103. I mean, absolutely incredible hitting. And I guess I wonder if there's some people at Cricket South Africa wondering what they can do to get Lizelle Lee back. Of course, I think the answer is nothing, because she now plays as a local in Australia. She's moved there. Her partner, I believe, is working at a school as a teacher. And I wonder if maybe she even qualifies for Australia at some stage. Who knows? But she's always been a big hitter. We've always known that about her. And it's just fantastic to see that we're getting these scores. I was talking earlier about South Africa and India's men's teams playing. We saw 283 runs scored in the T20. Not my favorite kind of T20, but to see people really scoring huge runs, big boundaries. We were just at the T20 World Cup. We saw those big outfields at Sharjah and Dubai, and it was so difficult to clear the rope. And I guess people want to see the ball flying. So incredible from Lizelle Lee, and really good to see the WBBL progressing. What's interesting for me was that we had the women's FTP come out just after we left Dubai. And it makes this provision for these leagues, the WBBL, the 100, and the WPL, which is moving up to February from 2026. And that sounds so good, because it sounds like they're demarcating international cricket and league cricket. But I'll tell you who it's not so good for, and that is South Africa. Because the SA20 was hoping to launch a women's league at some stage, and there is no longer a window for it. They can't do January, February. They can't do March, because Australia will play their internationals then. They can't do November, because that eats into the other bit of the international window. And so I get the feeling we might not actually see the thing get off the ground. And that is, I think, quite worrying from a South African development perspective, because now the three windows for the three leagues are the countries in the big three. And we left the World Cup thinking that was going to change. So, I'm not that happy about that FTP, I've got to say. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a really good point. And given the progress that South Africa are making, I mean, 2 T20 World Cup finals in a row, I mean, there is clearly development and progress going on there. And I mean, obviously, we've spoken about it on here before. It was supposed to be a legacy of them hosting the tournament last year. And whilst, it's not something that was going to change overnight, it does sound like, it's certainly like they certainly didn't drop off. In fact, they've maintained their momentum as of this year. And then to see that league competition now, struggling, and it's going to be something, struggling to find a gap, I suppose we should say. something that we've seen in other countries really boost the development of women's cricket. That is a concern.
Definitely, and it's not just a concern for South Africa. You know, I can think of other countries who've spoken about trying to start leagues. The women's CPL, we know that's quite a good one. It's very short, but it carries on, and even if it clashes with a few other things, it doesn't really matter. But the other country that's tried and failed, I suppose, is Pakistan with the women's PSL. We've heard talk about that, and it hasn't really kicked off. They've done a couple of exhibition matches, and it's been very short, and they've got in some international players. That's another country where we really need to see development kick on. We did have one bit of news from them in the last couple of days, which is the contracting. And unsurprisingly, I guess, the former captain Nida Dar has not been retained. I was a bit surprised to see Ali Arias, the all-rounder, who is another one that can hit the ball a long way, also not retained. So they seem to be moving on and trying to, I suppose, get some younger players in. The very young captain in Fatima Sana, who led the team so bravely despite the death of her father midway through the tournament. And yeah, they just didn't kick on, right? There just wasn't anything that suggested that Pakistan were going to challenge for a knockout place. So yeah, I think what we're seeing is the economics of the game really starting to dictate, as it always has, I suppose, to some extent, who's going to progress and develop and who's going to fall a little bit further behind. So that's slightly worrying for me in terms of what's happening there. There's just one more point I'll throw in around the FTP, which I would be very upset with myself if I missed out on, is that Zimbabwe will be part of the FTP. They've just started a women's domestic club league, so I wouldn't call it professional, but they are getting more game time for their domestic players. And we're going to see a lot more of them, which I think is pretty exciting from an African cricket perspective. Valks, did you see anything on that FTP or outside of that caught your eye as we head into a new season or a new summer of cricket here in the Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, no, nothing really above those headline items and those franchise windows being built in, because that was obviously a problem that the women wanted to avoid, having seen what the men's FTP, looked like, and the clashes and the choices that players were having to make between club and country and that sort of thing. So I think, having, had last year some clashes, the fact that they identified that as something that they don't want to repeat, looking at that and actually addressing it quite quickly. I think it was the speed with which that was addressed. And I suppose because they had this opportunity with the new FTP coming out, they did actually take action. That was quite good. It's a great point that you raised, though, that window hasn't served everyone in the case of South Africa, as we've mentioned. So there's clearly going to still be work to be done, looking forward and in terms of creating these development opportunities. But I think it is certainly a step in the right direction to have those franchise leagues, which are seen as, key to the development of the women's game, getting those windows and then not having those players stuck in those sticky situations between, their club and their country. So that's, something that stood out for me. The speed with which that was addressed was quite good. That said, scheduling raises its head again, as it always does, and we've got a very busy time coming up. It is summer in the Southern Hemisphere, so plenty to talk about, starting with this West Indies. I'm still thinking, I covered a West Indies game late last night for the men, and I'm still thinking about that, which was washed out incidentally. So moving on, the South Africa England series, and we will bring you more from that in times to come. Thank you so much for being with us.